So today, just kind of want to go over a few phone-related stories and such that I've read over the last couple of days, and also just kind of do a bit of a phone rant as well. But I'll start with the news, and then if you get to the rant part, if you want to listen, you can. If not, fair enough. So, some of the news. So the first one is this story about Samsung Galaxy Note 7 phones. And it's quite a big one, and it's surprising that it's happened. It's not the first time that a tech company's had an issue with batteries and such. Apple had it quite a while ago where they had quite a few MacBooks, the battery just explode, and I'm pretty sure a couple of people got hurt as well. But so, as the headline here says, it's only had 35 faulty phone batteries so far, but they're issuing a global recall and promises to replace every unit already sold. Now, I'm guessing that is worldwide that they will replace. If so, that is going to be a massive, massive blow to Samsung's profits. But they have a reputation to uphold, and I think they're doing the right thing, really, by committing to replacing faulty devices. I mean, they do have a right, or not a right to, but it's the consumer's right to have a replacement device if the first one's faulty under warranty rules and laws and such. So at least they're kind of complying with that. But once again, it's still absolutely fantastic that they've actually decided to say, okay, we'll do a recall worldwide instead of just replacing the ones that have broken, as it were. So that's my first bit of phone news that I read over the last couple of days. The second one is quite an interesting one, and it's to do with two new phones, and they're from Huawei. I think that's how you pronounce it. And oddly enough, one of them, they're actually both being kind of classed as mid-range phones, but oddly enough, one of them is very similar to a phone that's already out at the moment. So, as you may know, Huawei designed the Nexus 6P. I think they made it as well. And they've actually taken that body design for one of their new phones. So, it's the Huawei Nova, but they've also got a Nova Plus model, but we'll get onto that in a second. So, the Nova, just a few quick specs. So, 5-inch HD display, fingerprint scanner, 12 megapixel main camera, 8 megapixel front, USB Type-C, Snapdragon 65 processor, 3 gig of RAM, a base storage of 32 gig, which is expandable up to 120 by 128 gig with a micro SD card. It's also going to be running Marshmallow. Don't know if it'll get Nougat yet. And some regions dual SIMs, and also a reasonable battery with it as well. You've also then got the Huawei Nova Plus with very few differences really. So you've got a slightly bigger 5.5-inch screen. You've also got a slightly higher megapixel main camera and also with optical image stabilization. You've also got a slightly bigger battery, and that's about it really. They've both got the same processor, same amount of RAM, same storage, same operating system, very similar weights. So 146 for the Nova, 146 grams, 160 grams for the Nova Plus. So very similar spec-wise. Design-wise, they're a bit different. But I think they'll actually be quite good phones, really. I mean, I think one of the biggest problems will be that Huawei will be putting their own kind of spin on the Nougat system, which is a shame, as I think the stock Android OS is fantastic as it is, and I think that OEMs need to stop messing around with it, because now it's kind of gotten to a point where there are very few features included in Android that OEMs are coming up with. Like, yes, there were a couple of things. I think it was Samsung did the whole dual screen or dual app on the screen system a couple of years ago, and that was a pretty cool feature. But at the same time, I do kind of think that to some degree multitasking on the phone is a rare kind of situation you'll be in, unless you're kind of having to compare two things at once. You're not likely to use that feature too often, and due to the size of the screens, you're not really going to get the same kind of effect as if you had a dual screen monitor set up at your house. But yeah, so that's Huawei news to their two new phones. And the last bit of news is going to be quite a sad one, in that Google is suspending its Project Aura DIY smartphone project, which I've been really stoked for ever since I heard about it. I thought it was a fantastic concept, and I think it's such a shame that they're stopping it, especially since there's several other companies which are working on competitive systems, one of which I saw that you could even take the old hardware out, including the processor, and put it into a little kind of small form factor computer case, and you could almost set up your own little server system using old phone parts, because the processors themselves are reasonably powerful in comparison to, I don't know, computer processors from 5-10 years ago. So you've got quite a bit of power there, and if you had enough of them, you could really churn through some data. If you're doing video work and such, yeah, you'd still want a dedicated GPU, but with enough CPUs there, it will churn through that data quite quickly as long as the software supports it. And that will be the big flaw, because you'd be limited to probably a Linux-based operating system with it, in which case you're not really going to be able to get access to the kind of video editing or music editing softwares that Windows users have, such as the Adobe Cloud, or if you're doing music, maybe Pro Tools or Cubase. So unfortunately, it's had some delays, and it may come back, but they don't know. But it's going to be a real shame if it does kind of get axed, a bit like Google Glass, and then it just disappears into the ether. I mean, there's been LG that released the G5, and they tried to have a little pop at the kind of modular system. It wasn't quite as modular as we would have liked, because you only had a couple of modules available initially, and they were pretty kind of lackluster in what they really were. So you had an audio processor and a camera grip, neither of which the average consumer is going to need or even use. You kind of wanted it to be, I don't know, plug-in battery, or maybe additional lens for the camera to maybe do kind of VR/3D photography, which would have been absolutely brilliant. And by no means is it easy for software and hardware manufacturers to come up with a modular system that will work. You have to really think about the hardware side first, make sure that it's actually a feasible project, and that these modules aren't going to fall out, or that they're not susceptible to, I know, having infected modules with software and then being inserted, things like that. So you really got to think about that side, but you've also got to make sure that the software itself supports it as well, and that's a whole other nightmare, as anyone that kind of has done any coding and such will know. Hardware changes can be a massive pain, and you've got to code for so many variables, and it's just an absolute nightmare. So yeah, that's my rundown of some phone news lately. Did say I'd have a bit of a rant as well, and it's more about my personal phone experience. So I've lately kind of cancelled my phone contract with T-Mobile. I'm UK based, so it's already better than the US offers that they have, but I still wouldn't say it was brilliant. I mean, I was on a 2-year contract with a Nexus 5 phone, which was, I think, a year old anyway when I got the contract, but I loved the thought of a Nexus phone so much, I just had to get it. And it was a bit pricey still, and when it kind of came time for my contract to run out and I was due for an upgrade, I was then receiving calls nearly on a daily basis from company Carphone Warehouse, and it was such a pain. Virtually every day I would get a phone call middle of work, and I'd have to say to them, look, I'm at work, can't talk now, and they wouldn't take that as a, okay, you won't call back again. They took it as, when can we phone you again? Normally I'd get back a bit late, and they then wouldn't be there. So I'd give them a time to ring me, and no one would ring, because they're only there till about 5 o'clock, and I might not get back home till later than that. So such a pain, but got round to actually cancelling my contract with T-Mobile, and that kind of went okay. Did get a new SIM card for it, and that's been fantastic. Transferred number over. Had a bit of an issue for a few hours where I didn't have signal or data, so that was a bit of an annoyance, but nothing too serious, to be fair. I think if you can't go a few hours without mobile data, you kind of need to look at what you're doing and maybe think about how much you use your phone, really. But yeah, so that's my little rant about phones and some phone news. So cheers for watching my video, and I will see you soon.